Help me welcome Louise Griffith.
Thank you. And when I heard in the introduction, psychologist of 28 years, I want to tell you one of my favorite stories of that time. I've now retired and do the same work as a coach. So it was the fall around MEA time, and a teenager was coming in for a session, and she was very interested in becoming a psychologist in college. So they were looking at colleges, and outside my office, I had a sign that said Louise Griffith, MALP. And in all sincerity, she said, "Now, that LP, does that stand for licensed psychopath?" I said, "Honey, it depends on the day. You know, today I was feeling..." But they do sound alike, psychologist, psychiatrist, psychopath. So isn't that the best? And she was so sincere. I love it. All right, so you're going to be getting some handouts. And we're going to begin with my favorite poem called For a New Beginning by John O'Donohue. Do any of you know him? I know. Favorite Irish poet. And I included this because I think personally and professionally that every day can be a new beginning. That's exciting to me. And it could be like today. There might be something that I might say, there might be something that someone else will say that clicks with you, and you know, see a different perspective. So I get excited about that whole idea. And then you're going to be getting a green sheet called You're Worth It. And we're going to be talking about 3 areas: honoring your wisdom, choosing your story, and celebrating your magnificence. Are you okay with that? All right. I'd like to read this poem, and you have a copy to take home with you. And I'd like for you to listen for any phrase that resonates with you, and you'll have your words in front of you. So I'd like to begin. For a new beginning. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, the beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. For a long time it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, wondering, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure, hold nothing back, learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. Any comments about what spoke to you? Pardon me? Are there any comments that you'd share? I don't know if it's that spoke to you.
I'd say the whole thing.
Okay.
It's what I feel like I'm in a cocoon and I'm ready.
Awesome.
Yeah.
She feels like she's in a cocoon and she's ready. Do any of you relate to that? Yes.
The last line, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.
And there is an inner knowing, isn't there? It just may not be, the timing may not be right, which I have some issues with that sometimes since I know the perfect timing. I'm kidding. You do have a sense of humor, right? Are there any Irish in here, I hope? All right, okay. Whew, I'm kidding. Any other comments, please?
I think this is what it takes to be authentic to ourselves.
It takes to be authentic to ourselves. Yep.
I like the line, awaken your spirit
awaken your spirit to adventure. And fortunately or unfortunately, I'm familiar with the one about the seduction of safety. I'll talk about that later. It is a seduction, isn't it? I know. Well, it's safer. Any last comment? Yes?
Yeah, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. No matter how much I push forward, it seems like those childlike bad habits.
Unable to leave what you've outgrown. Even situations, that seduction of safety. So you don't have a handout? They'll give you one. Yes, we have them in the other room. I brought a lot. Matter of fact, I ran out of ink. I'm going to Office Max on my way to get Scion. It's okay, I'm so happy you're here. All right, well, this is my gift to you. All right? And I'd like to begin with the first point, honor your wisdom. And I would like to ask you this question. If you don't honor your own soul, who will? And if you don't honor your own soul, who will? And by what I mean by that is we each have an inner wisdom. You know, you can call it soul, inner wisdom, your GPS system, whatever, but each of us does have that. And when we pause long enough to listen, it can serve us well. You can think of times when you had an intuitive thought and you paid attention and it went well. You also, I hope, can relate to this over your lifetime. You had an intuitive thought, an inner wisdom, and you just sped right by. Can you? Okay, I want to tell you my recent favorite. I have a friend who's 20 years younger than I am. She can't help it, she's just fashionable. She worked in Manhattan. On the weekends, she would take a cooking course at the Institute or whatever, you know. And then even sometimes go to Paris to shop. I don't relate to any of it, right? But she is a soul sister, and I love being with her. We have that in common. So anyway, I asked her to help me get some new fashionable t-shirts to go back to Zumba, because I had broken, anyway. And then I wanted her to help me get a fashionable sandal for spring. I know some of you guys aren't going. But anyway, and so she said, let's meet at TJ Maxx. I'm like, great. So she got the t-shirts, like $10. They were good looking. I'm like, yes. Then she's in the shoe department, and she's all excited because she found the sandal and hoped it would be my size. Well, guess what? It was my size. I put it on. I'm like, great. But it was $99, and it's not that I wouldn't spend that ever. I just wasn't in the mood to spend $99 that day. I was sort of picturing, 50. All right. And then she is looking at the shoe, and she said, oh, my goodness, this is a designer shoe. She said, this is a $350 to $400 shoe. So guess what? My attitude changed. I love that shoe. I couldn't live without it, right? So I went up with my, little $10 t-shirts and my $99 shoe. Sandal. And the next day I got out of the car to go to a women's event, and within a minute, no longer than a minute and a half, I heard, this shoe is not good for you. It's not right. If you notice, you're a little wobbly in it. And the heel's not wide enough. But I'm like, wait, this is my $350, $400 shoe. It's great. So I just made it work. I had an old pattern of thinking come up that says, oh, I'll just make this work because of me. So I did make it work. All right. And I also didn't walk much that day because I was sitting listening to someone speak. The next day, I got up, going to meet with a gentleman who's interested in coaching together possibly, had an office in Edina. So I had my materials with my new shoe, of course, and I walked in the door. Within seconds, I was on the floor because my physical heel fell out of my beautiful, fashionable heel, and I have stuff all over, and I thought, how am I going to get up? So through the grace of God, I got up. And I go into the meeting, and now I'm trying to be professional, right? to hire me as a coach. I'm limping. I have my shoes in my hand because I cannot walk on my left ankle. So he said, in about 10 minutes, he said, "Do you think your foot is swollen?" I said, "I don't know." So now the professional me is there with, he got me some paper towel and some ice, and I'm like, okay, anyway. All right, so here's what I want you to know. By the end of the day, I had a new fashionable boot. Had x-rays, broke my ankle, went to TRIA, and then I have this. It's quite fashionable. How many of you have ever worn one? So then you join an boot club. You do. Anyone who's ever worn them will stop you. And I just fell out of my boot, my shoe, and they tell me about their story. And I was like grateful. They were in them for a long time. So 6 weeks. Now during that 6 weeks, I went to 3 different airports, which I wouldn't normally do. I was speaking in Manhattan. A coaching client wanted me to speak to a leadership group. I was going to Dallas and then a family reunion in Denver. Hey, so my friend told me, you need to call ahead and get a wheelchair. And I'm like, oh, my ego's like, a wheelchair, what's happening to me? I am so grateful for that wheelchair. Have you done it? It saves a lot of time, doesn't it? Oh my gosh. And you get through security in no time at all. And I love that wheelchair. And I'm starting a new business, but because you're hearing me speak, I won't charge you. It's called Rent-A-Boot. If you want to borrow my boot, let me know. Okay? So if you don't honor your own soul, who will? And I think that whole process cost me a little more than the shoe. Physical therapy, and it was a good experience. All right, so this morning, my point was, if you don't honor your own soul, who will? And I read this every morning as a part of my ritual. Do you know this book? I'm telling you, I love it. It's called A Year Without Fear by Thomas Keeves. Very short. It's called 5-Minute Mindsets. Well, here is the one for today. I don't have my glasses on, all right? Sometimes you will follow your soul, and others will feel alienated from you. Sometimes you will follow your soul, and others will feel connected to you, but you can feel connected to others only when you follow your soul. Isn't that nice? Just happened to be this morning, so I'm like, well, I'm going to bring it. Okay, so some years ago, I was exercising at Curves. I know you gentlemen aren't interested in that, but how many of you have ever been to Curves? So there's a circuit of machines, and you go around, and I checked out the classes, and I joined the early one because those women talked the most. They were the most fun. Well, why not, So I remember I was on this machine, and someone named Missy was on this machine. We must have been working on her waist. And she told me that she had lost 65 pounds so far that year. And I said, I'm curious, how did this happen at this time in your life? She said, I woke up one morning and just decided I was worth it. I woke up one morning and just decided I was worth it. And you've had this experience that stayed with me for days. I thought she has just given me a gift, a nugget for life. And for her, losing weight was her it. And I'm asking you, what is your it today? What is your soul telling you? Because if you listen, you will hear. And there's something I want to teach you that I call the extended pause. It goes 4 parts. Stop, listen, consider, and then respond. But you got to slow down to do that. And so then, over the years, I began to wonder what my it was. This title is You Are Worth It. And I'm going to tell you, and so I figured out what that was, and I'm going to tell you this story not to make it about me. I want you to go back in your life and think about when you remember your first it. And this is something that you wouldn't have had the words for it. Your soul knew. You just like knew it, and you'd put your stake in the ground for it. Does that make sense? Okay. So come with me to Holy Angels Academy, Catholic Girls School, Richfield. Freshman year, we had, any of you wear a uniform? Okay, I want to tell you, I did a poll. This was the ugliest uniform in the city. It really was. Gray flannel, had a red AHA on it, a nondescript blouse, and if you're a freshman, you wore a green tie. But guess what? I love my school. I had fun there, met some good friends. My sisters had gone there. Yep, we were all girls. We had a great time, good education. And during that year, my parents were going through a divorce, which some of you would have experienced. And I pretended I didn't care. I kept my eye on my mom all the time, right? Very stressed out. Have been married for 25 years. Not getting any money from my dad. But, you know, I was a teenager, so I didn't have much compassion. Do any of you have teenagers? Developmentally, I mean, it's just, that's how it is. Later, I, grew up a little bit emotionally, and I was able to talk to my mom and be with her then. But anyway, so I said I didn't really care, even though I was paying attention. And until like the end, it would have been sometime in June, my mother told me I couldn't go back because there was no money. And I was already at that time doing student service. Like you'd bring me your tray and in the kitchen, I'd put it in the dishwasher. But I had a moral dilemma because if you left one of Sister Brian's sugar cookies on your tray, I could not put them down the garbage disposal. That would have been a mortal sin. They were so good. So I put them in my ugly uniform and I passed them out to people, my friends. But anyway, when my mother told me that, and at that time we were living on 51st and Upton, I went to my soul place, which is Lake Harriet. And I am walking around the lake. It was actually a beautiful day, but I'm like, if you're in my head, you would have heard, okay, you guys, you might be wrecking your life, but you're not going to wreck mine. Blah, 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 blah. And then I said, and I'm supposed to go back to my school. And by the way, I was not the type of teenager who thought I should get what I wanted. I just, at some point inside of me, I knew that I should go back. And then I said, and God, where the heck are you? I'm very serious about this. A peace came over me, and I heard, you'll go back. I'm like, really, what's the plan? Get a job. I'm like, all right, that's it, yes. So I walked home to 51st and Upton, and I walked in, and I told my mother, I said, I'm going to get a job, pay my tuition, I'm going back to Holy Angels. Now, mind you, I was missing a few details, but she looked at me and she knew I meant it, and I did. So the next day I put on my best outfit. This is fun being back in our neighborhood. And I walked to 50th in France. Used to be a Fanny farmer. Do any of you remember that? Okay, so I walked in. A kind middle-aged woman looked up. May I help you? I said, yes, I hope so. I've come to apply for a job. And how old will you be? I'll be 15 by the end of the month. I'm so sorry. You have to be 16 to work here. And I could tell she meant it. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And I went outside. I'm like, oh, that was not my plan. I was supposed to get a job. And so then I thought, now where do I walk to? So do you remember on 44th in France, which is now Brugger's, was a drugstore? And on the way, Griffith Pharmacy, on the way I thought, Lord, I'm just going to tell my story. I can't be walking around the city. So I did. I just will speak from my heart. So Mr. Nelson, the owner and the pharmacist, looked up. May I help you? I said, yes, please, I hope so. So I told him about my situation, that I wanted to get a job, and I would do anything, even clean, which I would have done. And I remember his eyes. Something was happening within his eyes. I don't know, but I just waited. And he got me an application. Maybe he asked me my age, I don't know, but I filled it out, and then I walked home to 51st and Upton, just so excited. The next day I waited, no call. I'm like, oh. The next day I got a call. Guess what? I could work till 7, only 20 hours. I was so excited. Never told my friends that I wasn't going to maybe go back. Showed up with a blue tie, sophomore. And I worked in a back area with a very crabby woman. Can you picture her? Her name was Marlis. And later I thought about how miserable that must have been for her to have some bouncy 15-year-old come in who's so excited to be there. I mean, it must have, because she could be grouchy all day long in that little space. Oops, so what I did, looking back, something I was early training on for the work I do, I began sending her positive energy, because what the heck, I had time. And I was filing charge slips. And I'll tell you what, I'm 99% sure, 99.9, that Mr. Nelson created that job for me. So I just began sending her love, positive feelings, blessings, whatever. And guess what? She started laughing a little bit, smiling, you want to go overboard, and then laughing, and it was the most amazing things. So I want someone to come up here. Will you help me, please? Evan, right? Yeah. All right. I'm not going to hurt you.
All right.
So this is what I had seen at a conference in, do any of you know any people who are resistant, by the way? Do you know any people who are resistant in your life?
Oh, yeah.
Good, okay. I didn't pick you because you looked resistant.
Okay.
Okay, because you and I talked before. So I'm going to ask you to put out your arms. Yes, and now I'm going to ask you to resist me, and I'm going to try to push his arms in. Okay? Resist me. Ooh, he's very strong. All right, now I'm going to be sending you love, positive blessings, positive energy, whatever, from my heart to yours. Okay, so please put them out. All right. Try me, I'm competitive.
Resist me.
Oh, he is.
I don't want to hurt you.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Now I want to send you positive energy, kindness, compassion, and love.
Yeah. Okay? So say resist me.
Resist me.
Isn't that something? Thank you.
Okay.
So you know what? This is something we can be doing every day. And teach it to your children. And how many of you are grandparents? I teach it to my grandchildren. Like there's a bully down at Linden Hills Park for my, anyway. It's, the price is right. And I've also tried it by not telling the person I'm going to send the things that you sent me. It doesn't matter. So I had a teenager, I love teenagers, come in for a therapy session, and she had attended a Catholic school, so sort of sheltered, right? She was beautiful. She didn't know she was beautiful. She's a great volleyball player, and went to one of the Bloomington high schools, big schools. And do you think the girls were very happy to see someone beautiful come in who's a good volleyball player? No. And they were very mean to her. And she has a beautiful heart. Came in. So anyway, we talked about it, and then I told her I had just seen this demonstration. We tried it, and I said, it's very compatible with who you are, because you are a kind, loving young person. So anyway, she went off and sent love and all those things to those girls. When I saw her again, she said, oh my goodness, she said, some people talk to me in the hallway. They don't invite me to the parties because guess what? I don't want to drink. So I'm just offering this to you as something that you can actually really do. And at this point, I'd like you to get up. I have a chime. I used to be a teacher, so I can be bossy. And when you hear this, please go back to your seat. So get up and say hello to someone and find out how they're doing. Thank you. Was your partner nice?
Actually, I had two. I was greedy. Yes.
All right. You're into abundance, for sure. Thank you for doing that. Okay, so now I want to move a little bit into, I want to talk about fear, because fear can really get in the way of listening to your intuition. And there's a poem that I love called Edges. When we walk to the edge of all the light we have and take the step into the darkness of the unknown, we must believe one of two things will happen. There will be solid ground to stand on, or we'll be taught how to fly. They'll be solid ground to stand on, or will be taught how to fly. That is, you have my website on the thing. I have a section called poetry, poems, because I love them. So if you want to go, you'll find also for a new beginning on that. Okay, so the other thing that can really get in the way of honoring our wisdom and being more of who we are some of the messages that we perhaps heard growing up, right? All right, let's see. You want to read them with me? We're moving into Choose Your Story. Did you hear any of these messages as a child? Don't be a know-it-all. Keep peace at any cost. Be happy with what you know. Be quiet, be good. Do what I tell you, and don't be too bright. Did you hear any others growing up?
What will others think?
There you go. Yes.
What are you doing, Teresa?
Have fun. It looks like you took that on. Good for you. That's great. That's really nice to hear. You know, I just forgot, talking about children. By the way, I'm backing up a little phrase. Children are very wise, I think. How about you? And you were too. But you didn't know that you were wise because you were doing life and you were a child. I like to say to my grandchildren, you are very wise. You have some really amazing ideas. And had the privilege of giving this as a keynote in a school district because I value teachers and I want them to know they are worth it. And I said to them often, listen please to the kids and say to them, you are very wise. And the story I forgot is, come with me to my daughter's who lives on 45th and Chown. And I lived in Lakeville at the time, so I was in the area for a preschool program. And I used to drive and be at her home at 6 a.m. because she taught yoga and whatever, something in Uptown. So I had spent the night, and then I'm in bed with Lucas. Lucas was the type of child who started off in his bed, but he'd end up in someone else's bed. Did you know any kids like that? So anyway, it's 5:45 in the morning. I know that because it's dark. I'm not ready to get up. I look at the clock, and I said, oh, Lukey. He's staring up. I said, oh, Lukey, how about if let's just rest for a little while. You know, I'm trying to negotiate. And he said, Nana, old people die. And I'm like, I said, yes, they do, sweetheart. Nana, are you old? I didn't tell him I just met with some of my Holy Angels friends who had birthdays in January, February. They're trying to teach us about Medicare. And I said, no, Nana, are you old? I said, honey, I don't feel old at all. I love life. I love to dance. I love to learn. I'm like, la, 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 la. Must have taken a breath. And he said, Nana, you look sort of old. And I had just had my roots done on 43rd. Yeah. And I said to her, you did a great job. It doesn't matter, obviously. So, and then I didn't need to ask the next question. It sort of rolled out of my mouth. I said, Lukey, do you think Grandma Kay looks old? And what do you think his answer was? No. She's a year younger than I am. She loves that story. But I didn't ask any more questions. I thought sometimes you ask too many questions, right? And so, are you old? You look sort of old. Okay. So I began wondering what I was thinking about when I was 4. And when you look back, you knew some wise things. Even though you didn't know you were wise. Am I making sense to that? But you just did. And my brother Bill was born, that was on 44th and Abbott, 4440. And he was the 5th child in our family. We were running out of bedrooms. And eventually, he came out of my parents' room where he was in a bassinet, and there was a crib at the end of my bed. I'm like, oh my gosh, a real person. And I sort of liked adventure stuff instead of dolls, but I love that little boy. And you know how it is when kids get strong enough and they pull themselves up and they're ready for the day, sort of how you got out of bed today, right? Filled with hope and curiosity. But you know what? looking back, I had a sense that he was somehow vulnerable and that I should take care of him. As a 4-year-old, I had a sense of that. So I'm growing up and doing that too, and he was discouraged. He was held back in 3rd grade. And when I look at his picture in the Southwest yearbook, his eyes are sad. Eyes are sad. So when he ended his life at age 26, untreated depression, I went back to that vow I made. And I'm going to step aside into my role of psychologist for 28 years. I don't know anything about your lives, except for I can tell you're really great people. And I don't know if any of you have experienced depression, are experiencing depression, live with someone who is. This is what I want you to hear. Clinical depression is real. It's treatable. It does not get to be an excuse. And I hope that you, if ever you've been judging yourself, you are not damaged goods, nor is your loved one. Are you hearing that? And I know that you're worth it to take care of that and to check that out. And you are not damaged goods. You're precious. I'm going to step back. Okay? Back to those messages. Hey, that was an important story I wanted to tell. Some of the messages, here's what I say. Which of these messages are still a part of your current story? How have they impacted your life today? And I really want you to think about this. Someday I'm going to do a half-day workshop on this, choose your story. Because some people are their story. And in that story, they're usually the victim. Something happened to them and they want to blame people. And maybe it's time to shift the ending of it. Maybe it's time to shift it. This is what I experienced and this is what I learned. Only you can change the story. It's not like you lie, but only you can change the ending of it. Is that making sense? And out of respect, I know that a lot of people don't know how to change their story. It's been such a part of their identity for a long time. I didn't know, but you probably know this, that Steve Jobs was adopted, and when one of his little cousins told him, like, when you were born, you were given up. And he was like totally bummed. And his parents finally said, what's going on? And he told them, and they said, you weren't given up, honey. You were chosen. In my own life, I have 2 stories, both of which are true. Story A, story B. I was married for 43 years to someone who probably was not very life-giving all the way through, but I sort of kept myself in a self-imposed trance. I'll just work harder and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, at age 66, 43 years, I was at the point where my soul was dying. That's why I say if you don't honor your own soul, who will? I had no idea about the financial deception that had been going on, blah, blah, blah. That's enough. But I just left into a 2-bedroom apartment, 3rd floor. That was amazing to me. And I kept that for a new beginning on my refrigerator. Like, I read it every day. All right, so that's story A. Story B, I was married for 43 years, and you know what? I have a lot of good memories. Raising kids and the things that we did with other families. I have a lot of good memories. And really, in my life, the person to whom I was married is my best lesson giver. And on most days, I will bless him for that. Thank you for the lessons learned. And a lot of them are in the book. Those 52 weeks I have lived, and it's not about getting a divorce, by the way. But anyway, so that's where I chose. And I think you don't go from story A to story B. I found a great therapist. I always have a coach. At the moment, I have 2 coaches because I believe in all that for support and calling you forth. But, Okay, sounds good. How are you with making a mistake? How are you with making a mistake? Are you? Are any of you hard on yourself? Because sometimes here's what we do. I made a mistake, I shouldn't make a mistake. It's terrible to be making a mistake, therefore I'm a bad person. It's like, how do we get to that point? So other people can tell us things, messages. We do a great job of sort of beating up ourselves at times. that some of the work I get to do as a coach with a assessment that mathematically measures the clarity of your thinking patterns. Okay, so come with me to, it was a Sunday night in January. I'm going to start the week off right. I'm getting my car filled up and washed. My little Toyota. All right, so I'm all happy, and I come around the corner, and I can see a car going into the car wash, and I can see the door going down. I can see the lights of the tail lights. So I just put my car in park, and I waited. I just put it in park, and then I went off somewhere, thinking about the week, just who knows. I was off. And then I came back, and I could see the car was still in there because the taillights, I could still see the taillights. So then I thought, oh my gosh, maybe they got the super duper wash. I got the $5.99 one, right? All right, so then I just went off again. When I looked behind me, there are 3 cars behind me. Like, whoa. So then, who knows, when I came back, I looked, I could still see the taillights. Now there were 5 cars behind me, and I was concerned. Actually, I thought maybe that person had a heart attack or a stroke. So I opened the door, I'm like, was anyone else concerned? So this young man came up to my car. I rolled down the window, and he said, ma'am, have you put in your code? And I said, no, not yet. I said, I'm really concerned. That car's been in there for a long time. I can still see the taillights. And he said, ma'am, what you think you're seeing, the taillights of a car inside the car wash, would actually be the reflection of your headlights. I started laughing so hard. Look what I made up. Big car wash and everything. And there really was a car that went in. I was not being delusional. I saw that. And so anyway, I don't know if any of you do this. I started laughing so hard I had tears in my eyes. I did. And so I couldn't see the code. So then I'm saying to him, I'm sorry, could you please put in my code? Yeah. And he said, yes, ma'am. I'll put your code in. And now remember, next time that you come here, put your code in first. I'm like, yes, I will. So I'm in the car wash laughing. I'm laughing on the way home at what I had made up. And then I typed up the story. I'm a member of the National Speakers Association, and they suggest that you type up something funny. So I'm typing away. But guess what? I didn't ever tell it, because you should have a point when you tell a story. I couldn't figure out the point. I could not. Go. Yeah. So until, I know, I could not figure it out. So I let the. So then, about a few years later, my friend Marilyn McGuire, whose birthday was yesterday, lives in Seattle, sent me a CD. And the title is Listen to Your Heart. And song number 6 is We Can Be Kind. And that's what that young man chose to do, which we can do every day. It's a conscious choice we make. And I want to tell you that none of the other cars honked. So there you go. We can be kind. Okay, so now we're going to do something. We're moving into celebrating your magnificence. Our time's about to be up. Are you having a good time, I hope? Yeah. I love looking at you. You're just so receptive, and so your souls are beautiful. All right, now some of you may not like it. We're going to do it anyway. I want you to get with a partner, sort of face each other, so you have to move around, and decide who's going to be A and who's going to be B. Okay, do it quick. Did you decide who's going to be A, who's going to be B? All right. A's, please raise your hand. Now, you're going to have 1 minute, and our friend Jan is going to be timing. You're going to have 1 minute, this is what you're maybe not going to like, to talk about yourself positively. I know. The strengths and gifts you've been given. Right. And so you're going to break that rule. You're going to talk positively about yourself. And B, where are the B's? You're going to break a rule also, because guess what? You're going to listen. And don't let them get you into a conversation, because then they won't talk about themselves for a minute. So don't fall for that. And if they quit talking positively before you hear my chime, they must stand, flap their wings, and say, I'm great. All right, so where are the A's? All right, you have, Jan, tell us, a minute, go. All right, B's, the ones who are listening, I want you to stand, please. The B's, the listeners, stand. And look at your partner in his or her eyes and say, I've got the best partner in the whole room. I want to be just like you when I grow up, and give him a standing ovation. Guess what? 1 minute, positive things about yourself. Like I could say I am kind, because I am, okay? Positive things. And if they quit before the thing, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. Okay, and your mark it set? Go. All right, A's, the ones who are listening, A's, please stand and look at your partner and say the following. I thought it was great till I met you. You're my role model for life, and give them a standing ovation. All right. Some of you may have felt challenged by that, but I'll tell you what, if you take one thing away, I hope you will take this. At the bottom of your sheet that I handed out, it's selfish of you to not really own your gifts, your God-given gifts, and share them with others. It's selfish because you're not being more of who you can be, and that person is robbed of your gifts. So I want you to think about it. It's on your handout. So it's not about getting a big head or anything like that. It's about honoring and acknowledging the gifts that you have and the gift that you are. So in closing, I want to suggest that you have two choices as you leave here. And number one is to make sure you don't get a big head. I mean, lie low, for gosh sakes. And, just keep under the bushel basket. So you can make that decision. And I want you to notice the resonance and impact of that choice or decision. Yeah, there you go. There she was. Or you can step into the light of who you really are and the magnificence and the beauty. It's really fun being up here, seeing your beauty, your souls. And you can claim those gifts and be more of who you are and let your light shine brightly. So I want you to notice the impact and resonance of that choice. I hope you'll make this choice and actually a decision, because it is who you are. It is so who you are, and you are worth it. Thank you. I want to thank you, Lord, for being with these precious, precious, precious people. They have beautiful souls, don't they? Yes. And I really want them to own the fact that they are worth it. And whatever their it may be, know that they're worthy of pursuing that. So I ask a blessing upon each and every one of them and their families, and keep them safe this week.